And now, before we wind things up and let you break for lunch, I'm going to introduce you to Brendan Gleeson, Secretary General of the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, for today's closing remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Helen. Thanks for helping us with this, and thanks for your penetrating and reflective questions that challenged everybody. I'm glad I'm not having to face them. Look, the plan here today was that Minister McConalogue would deliver these final remarks, and for obvious reasons, he can't be here. So I think we should acknowledge in the record of this meeting that it takes place against the background of very tragic events in Donegal. I think it's important to acknowledge that. I know that he'd want me to thank all of the contributors to today's conference. I want to express my gratitude to the Taoiseach for being here, and I think his presence here this morning shows that this is an extraordinarily important sector for the economy and for society, and it remains that way. I want to thank Lawrence Haddad and Tassos Hanyotis for their interesting perspectives on sustainable food systems from an international perspective, and I'll come back to that. And it did strike me that Lawrence said we shouldn't sacrifice strategy for the immediate challenges. And actually, this is a perfect example of that, because we did reflect long and hard coming into this process. It was 2017 when we had our first meeting, and I think Helen actually helped us out in the Aviva Stadium in 2019. And we were faced with the freight train of Brexit coming down the tracks. And we did reflect on whether this was the right time to present people with these big strategic challenges. And we felt we had no choice at that time. And it was exactly the right thing to do, because since then we've had the challenges of COVID, we've had the challenges of Ukraine, and what's clear to me is that the agri-food sector, through all of those challenges, has shown, and I know it's a buzzword that people detest, remarkable resilience, and it has thrived through this period. And I think that's because of the strength of our food systems in Ireland. It's because we're part of a union of like-minded member states that cared for each other and looked after their citizens. And it's because of the people we have and their expertise in producing food at farm level and at processing level. So I think that's a tribute to everybody in this room, I think, and it needs to be called out. We heard today from different parts of the sector represented in the Food Vision Committee, and they developed for themselves a very positive vision for the sector. And I think there's something very powerful in that. This is not something imposed by the state. It's something that people develop for themselves. And it's probably up there behind me, but it's that Ireland should become a world leader in sustainable food systems. And that's a short and simple statement, but it captures many of the great challenges facing humanity at present. The world has to produce enough high-quality, safe nutrition to feed a growing population. And as a world-class producer of sustainable food, Ireland is really well placed to make a positive contribution to that endeavour. The work we do to improve carbon efficiency by reducing emissions per kilo of food output is absolutely critical if we're to meet demand for 70% more food by 2050. But we also have to acknowledge that that is no longer enough. The world faces a climate and biodiversity crisis. If left unchecked, this will have a profound impact on food production systems and human welfare across the globe. And ultimately, it will test the resilience of producers in Ireland and elsewhere in Europe. So our government has signed up to ambitious and binding targets to reduce emissions right across the economy. And the agri-food sector will have to play its part in that effort. Now, without the work of those who own and care for the land, or those who harvest our seas, neither food production nor environmental objectives will be met. And this means that those producing food or providing public goods for taking additional steps to meet environmental goals have to make a reasonable economic return from those efforts. And with that in mind, we've recently launched a €10 billion CAP strategic plan to support farmers and the food sector over the next 5 years. And we're close to finalising a fisheries operational programme and a forestry programme over the same period. The food systems approach, articulated in Food Vision 2030, attempts to reconcile the tensions between these various objectives that I've spoken about, but also to exploit the synergies between them, and that's very important. And I think what we've done is we've harnessed the talents right across the sector to help us in that endeavour, including people from the sector and all of the various state agencies involved. None of this is easy. Some of the strategies for delivering on these objectives are contested to a greater or lesser extent. And you'll have heard some of those issues discussed today. You'll have heard the presentation from Jerry Boyle and Thea Hennessy about the difficult discussions they've had. But you will also have heard, I think, all of the stakeholders today in public engaging respectfully, constructively, and with serious intent on the most challenging of issues. For example, on some of the very significant environmental challenges. So the strength of this process is that collaborative approach. That doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that some of these subjects won't be contested by various stakeholders. But everybody is working together here with serious intent and guided by this common vision that they've agreed for themselves. So that's the importance of the vision, I think. Food Vision also recognises the significant market opportunity for the Irish food sector in strengthening its position as a global leader in sustainable food production. And I think we've heard from some of the people in the food business today that it's more than that, in fact, that there's an absolute imperative here to deal with these issues if we want to remain competitive in global markets. So it's beyond opportunity, this is a market imperative. Ireland's food and drink companies range from world-class global operators to small artisan producers. Consumers at home and around the world already recognise that Irish food and drink is high quality, distinctive, and made by a diverse range of creative producers from an exceptional island location. And I would say that, but I think it's absolutely true. The Department and its agencies, including Board BIA, Teagasc, BIM, the Marine Institute and others, such as the FSAI, support the sector by upholding the highest standards of food safety and authenticity, by protecting animal health and welfare, by encouraging innovation and supporting investment, and by ensuring through the Origin Green programme that Ireland's sustainability credentials are a key point of differentiation in the marketplace. And actually I found one of the Slido questions, I found it quite interesting. I think there was a question about the relative importance of the missions in Foodwise. And I noticed that of the people who didn't think they were all equally important, only 5% of people thought food safety was a key driver of the development of the sector. And I think that's a good sign, because I think it is an area where we are truly excellent, but we've heard from Pam today that we can't afford to be complacent about that for a second, because one food safety incident can compromise the integrity of the entire sector. But it is an indicator of the confidence that consumers, at least the consumers in this room, have in our food safety systems. And I look forward to the day, maybe in a couple of years' time, when we have a similar result on some of our environmental indicators, that they're no longer there at the pinnacle of ambition, because we're addressing those issues in a significant way. And I also think I should thank Laura Burke and the EPA for the support they give to the agri-food sector, because what they do is prevent us from being complacent, and they call out the results. And we've had a number of contributors today talking about metrics and how we measure our success. And the reports produced by the EPA every year help us to do that. So thanks, Laura, for that. And we'll work with you in a very collaborative way to try and to get things moving in the right direction. We can't ever afford to be complacent about what it takes to develop and sustain this sector. And a key objective of Food Vision, going back to the Slido result, is that we have to excel in all of these areas, that we're best in class, and that we meet our environmental obligations. And Sinead, I think, spoke about the need to attract and develop and retain the best and brightest to work in the agri-food sector. Among other things, this will require us to acknowledge and support the role of women in the sector. The development of initiatives to improve diversity and inclusion can play a key role in this regard. And as part of this effort, Minister McConalogue recently announced that former Taoiseach and Minister for Agriculture Mary Coughlin will chair a national conference on women in farming next year. And I think that's a very important initiative. I want to touch for a moment on some of those global issues that were dealt with at the very outset of this conference. Next Sunday is World Food Day. And while for us in Ireland, the agri-food sector provides a source of income and sustains many of our rural communities, many others around the world are facing a much more fundamental problem. Food security, the availability and affordability of nutritious and safe, sustainably produced foods affects their health and their very existence. 2021 was the year of the UN Food Systems Summit. Sustainable food systems and Food Vision 2030 were the central themes of Ireland's engagement. The department is working with the UN Food and Agriculture Organization to advance and advocate for food systems transformation, which is essential to realising the UN's Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The Ukraine crisis has impacted global food supply chains in many ways, creating significant risks in terms of food security and market disturbance. Now, more than ever, we have to work together to ensure that we have safe, healthy and nutritious food for an expanding global population, while protecting our shared planet. Climate action and biodiversity, and this has come out in several presentations today, are absolutely vital to our future food security, even when faced with the immediacy of these challenges. And it's very important, I think, that we don't create this false binary, food production or the environment. We really have to do both of these things. Food Vision commits to real and challenging actions, working in a spirit of partnership between government, state agencies and stakeholder representatives. And I'd like to thank everybody who came here today for working together in that spirit, and I think the rich discussion we had was evidence of this collaborative endeavour. And I want to conclude, I think, by thanking my own team, because all of this didn't come together by accident. I want to thank Sinead McPhillips, Sean Bell, Willa Bruce and their team for working so hard to make this thing work today. And if there's to be a traditional round of applause now, it should be for them, I think, and not for me. Thanks.
So busy applauding the team. I would like to second that. I'd like to thank all of the team behind organising today's event. They made my job very, very easy. Okay, we'll finish up by thanking again all of today's panellists and speakers, and thank the ministers and An Taoiseach for attending today's event.